This week in worship, we're going to be talking about Noah and the flood. And there's this little passage that is not going to take any of my attention on Sunday. And I thought maybe I could just tell you a little bit about it in this back to basics moment. It's in the beginning of the 6th chapter of the book of Genesis. A few years ago, I found myself in a conversation with a Baptist missionary and a man who claimed he did not want anything to do with the Christian faith. Neither of them had ever met a woman minister. And when anybody says that to me, I know what's going to happen next. I'm about to be tested. Somehow, the conversation landed in the beginning of the 6th chapter of the book of Genesis. The man who was steering clear of the Christian faith said, "Well, what do you think about the Nephilim?" The missionary added, "Yeah, when the angels came to earth and mated with human women, their children were giants, and God found them unacceptable." To which I responded, "That's not in the Bible." "Yes, it is," the men chorused. "Where is it?" Since neither of them could remember, and I was the only graduate of a theological seminary, I held my ground until I got home and could Google it. And there it was, Genesis 6, 1-4. These Nephilim were cited as the reason that God got so fed up with the humanity that the only answer God could think of was to destroy the whole kit and caboodle with the flood. What? So I did the only thing I could think of, and I studied into the night, thanking God for the internet and Google searches. As is true for most of the book of Genesis, this story requires interpretation. You can't just take it at face value. None of the first book of the Hebrew Bible was ever meant to be taken literally, as it tells stories that are not historical. It's all written to answer questions for which there are no answers. It's born out of the oral tradition passed on from generation to generation. But these Nephilim, they show up in Genesis and they show up again in the book of Numbers. When the Israelites are about to enter the land of Canaan, the promised land flowing with milk and honey, we never talk about how there were people already living in the promised land. So the Israelites send spies to check out the competition. And this is what is reported back to the leaders of the Israelite army. "The land that we have gone through as spies is a land that devours people. All the people are of a great size. There we saw the Nephilim, and they themselves said we seemed like grasshoppers to them." And that's how stories grow, my friends, no pun intended. In the end, I had to go back to my new friends and admit I was wrong. The Bible does talk about Nephilims, and it's a really tall tale. I'll see you Sunday to talk more about the flood.